So, first of all, Sandy, I just want to ask, what's it like for your book to be chosen for this great list?
Well, I was delighted when they told me, because I'd been involved with World Book Night before, and I think it's a wonderful idea. The idea of going out and giving books to people in the street is terrific, or in various other places. So I was very pleased, and yeah, I think it's a marvelous example of how books involve sharing, because it's rather interesting that when you read a book that you like, one of the first things you think about is actually saying to somebody else, do read this book. We want to share our enjoyment in books. And I think World Book Night, in a sense, institutionalizes that fundamental desire that we have to share the experience of a book. It's an interesting thing that there is this human desire to share a satisfactory aesthetic or intellectual experience with other people. It's not quite so fun to look at something and enjoy it yourself. You want to bring somebody in and say, what do you think of this?
Yeah.
It's a fundamental desire to share with others. Yeah. And I think World Book Night plays exactly into that. Mm-hmm. It's people going up to people they don't know and saying, how about this?
Has anyone ever tried to give you a book on World Book Night?
No, I haven't received a book on World Book Night, but I've got too many books. I actually have a problem, as most of us have, with shelving. This is a big difficulty for most people who are interested in books. Do get a shelf problem eventually, and I've got a shelf problem where I get a lot of books. I get a lot of books sent to me that I haven't asked for, and they come through the door. And you know, we get sort of 5 or 6 books a day come into the, and so these books are, you know, I do try to, but I can't read all of them, and it's very embarrassing. And many of them are unpublished, and so we get manuscripts from people, which is fine, and in many cases they are publishable. Some of them aren't publishable. I was doing one of my American tours a couple of years ago, and I was in North Carolina, and I was doing this event in a bookstore, and there was this man looking at me from the audience. I'm getting a slight ring as I tell this slightly spooky story. That's the automatic, very sophisticated equipment which picks up. When a story is slightly eerie, it produces this ring, which is very effective, actually. It's very advanced equipment that the council has. And they do that in the council chamber as well. When certain councillors get up, they go, you tune it. And it's got a dial where the political parties are, and you get a sort of hum for the SNP and another hum for the Lib Dems and so on. Anyway, now we're back to normal. Where were we? Oh yes, this man in the signing queue, well, during the event he was looking at me in a slightly unsettling way. And when you go on a book tour in the United States, you have security because they have this gun problem, and many authors are shot at their signings. And so there was this security man next to me, and I said, a little bit worried about this. He said, fine. And in the queue for the signing of the books, this chap was approaching me, and the security man was getting ready to shoot him if required. And as he came up to me, he then said to me, as he reached the head of the queue, what are you doing afterwards? And so the security man said, no, he's going back to the hotel, he's leaving the country. And then he produced an envelope, and he said, I want you to read my book. And there in this envelope was his thick book, which he had privately published. And so I said, fine, I'll read this. And I took it back to the hotel. It was terribly funny. It was about 600 pages. All about a man who was kidnapped by a ship full of nuns. And the nuns, I'm afraid, were nymphomaniacs. It was extraordinary.
A unique premise.
This was before 50 Shades of Grey was published, and of course, you know, it could have been a tremendous bestseller, and I lost the opportunity to discover it.
There's an angry man in America somewhere saying
well,
it could have been me.
I'm afraid I did put it in the bin, and that was obviously a very bad move from the commercial point of view.
Indeed.
How did we get onto this?
I wonder if we can go back to where reading started for you, I suppose.
Yes.
So maybe I don't know, the first book you loved as a child.
Two books I loved as a very small boy. I had two books that I really, really enjoyed, and which were like teddy bears. Books can become the same sort of object as a teddy or stuffed toy. Children can embrace them, eat them. Children do like to bite books, and you get these books which are washable.
Biteable.
Biteable. But in my case, two books. Firstly, a little blue book with a rather odd, slightly plasticky cover called The Boy's Book of British Merchant Shipping, which was a wonderful book, very short on plot, and indeed characters. And it gave pictures. It had pictures of these of coastal shipping ships with their tonnage details. And this was a subject of great fascination to me. I loved that book. I loved it so much. W.H. Auden has a poem in which he said, "When I was a boy, I had a pumping engine, thought it every bit as beautiful as you," which is a lovely... I thought this Boy's Book of Merchant Shipping was to me
the best thing
ever. And then I had a book called Ginger's Adventures, which was a ladybird book, and that's still in print, although there have been various attempts to suppress it, because it's non-PC. Ginger is a dog, and it's written in the sort of bumpty, bumpty, bumpty rhyming couplets. And he's a dog who belongs to a boy who lives on a farm, and everything's fine. And then he's taken off to live with a girl in the town, and everything's bad. And he's on satin cushions, and he doesn't like this. I mean, it's really got a very subversive message, this. You can see why it's suppressed. And he goes off to town, and he lives on these satin cushions, and he remembers the life with the boy. And eventually he runs away, and he does this wonderful trip on his own back to find Tommy, who lives on the farm, and he's reunited with the boy on the farm, where they can chase ducks and have a wonderful boy's life. Now, look at the message in that book. It's just really very profound. So I loved that book, and it's coloured my whole way of thinking.
I'm aware that we're quite short on time, so I do want to throw it over to all of you momentarily. I think there's going to be a mic. Anna normally has a mic, and she'll wander among you. But I've got one more question. In the spirit, in the spirit of the giving of books,
yes.
Which book would you say you've really pressed on people the most? Your own books aside, I mean, other recommended to people and really said you must read this.
What if you are somebody who was a Mormon?
Are you?
No, I'm not. No. But that would
have a different answer,
yes,
I think. Yeah.
No, it's not. The book that I've pressed on people, well, there is a book that I do press on people to the extent of actually buying it for them, because some of the people on whom I press this book obviously aren't going to buy it. And I can tell, because when you're pressing the book, their eyes glaze over, and you realize that you can press as much as you like, and they wouldn't. So you have to buy it for them. And then you have to then phone them and say, have you read that book? I got you. The book I press is by an architect called Christopher Alexander, and it's a wonderful book called The Pattern Language. And he's written another wonderful 4-volume series on the nature of order, and the whole idea of order and design, and a humane vision of architecture and city planning. And The Pattern Language is a beautiful, beautiful book. The other book, the first volume of the 4-volume series, The Nature of Order, is a larger book, and therefore it requires more energy to press on people. Is a wonderful exploration of how in nature we will find certain patterns and certain sympathetic orders, and how we have lost sight of that in planning and creating our modern large human communities, where we have violated these fundamental rules of sympathy and human scale. And he's a wonderful man, Christopher Alexander. He's a professor of architecture. He's originally British, but went to America. And he's a professor of architecture at Berkeley. And he's become a movement. He's become a whole climate of opinion. And this is a book that I press on people to the extent of buying it for them and asking them to read it, because the essential vision is just so wonderful. And he's got, in the Nature of Order, in the volume, in the first volume in the 4-volume series, he's actually got pictures of dead space and living space, and he photographs buildings in their context, in their surroundings, and compares them, and you can see exactly what he means. And in many cases, modern buildings are dead. There's flat facade. Their scale is out of scale with the buildings around them. And I think this is, he says that in order for us to thrive in human community, we actually have to take account of the issues of integration and order. It's a visionary account of it, but I'll get you a copy.
Great.